talking about the trucking industry and some of the hootenannies, the shenanigans that ultimately, I don't even know if it's affecting like major safety. I didn't go into the stats, but I do want to bring a very experienced trucker who's behind the wheel as we speak. He is live. Let's bring trucker Tim in if we can.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Tim, thanks for joining Wrench Nation. First off, where are you at? What part of the country are you hanging?
I'm in Utah right now. We're getting ready to load up with turkeys for Thanksgiving.
Oh my God! Why'd you remind me, man? We got Thanksgiving. That's another holiday pressure for the family. But we are diving into some of can we just get into it? There's some laws being broken in the trucking industry right now. So it had been quiet, Tim, for some time, and now we're starting to see the nightly news cover it. What do you see as far as laws? And then we'll get into a bit more of your background and some of your pet peeves and move on. What laws do you see right now that are being broken? While, not mentioning names, what's the biggest thing that you're seeing regarding the laws out there for trucking?
Well, historically, if we go back the last 10, 15 years, probably even longer than that, there's been a lot of laws broken. The trucking industry has just turned into the wild, wild west. And it's all for money. Everything has their roots based in money. The Trump administration, is tightening up the laws right now, especially with the non-domicile workers.
Well, hold on. Talk to people, because some people don't know, what is a non-domicile worker?
Right. So a non-domicile worker it fits into two categories. It's typically a foreign national who has a visa to work in the United States for a certain period of time. When that visa is up, the license should not be reissued, but it has been reissued over the years. Some states are more lenient in reissuing and not checking somebody's residency as required by law. So that's one law that's changing. Non-domicile also refers to, let's say you have a person in Florida who, say in the rumorville, hears that, oh, it's easy to go to California and get your CDL. The test is real easy. It's really cheap. You'll be done in a week and a half, and you'll be driving a semi-truck. And so it also refers to a person that doesn't live in the issuing state that they received their CDL. So those are the two categories that a non-domicile person would fall into.
I got to ask you on that front. All right, so non-domicile, why would a trucking company favor a non-domicile worker?
Once again, it's all based on money. If a trucking company, and this has happened, there's a couple of incidents out of Texas where trucking companies were hiring Hispanic workers from the nearby border and paying them half the money that an American truck driver would get paid. So when you look at the market rates at how much these loads are paying right now, it's been the last month or so the rates have gone up. But since COVID, a lot of trucking companies have gone out of business. You have Yellow, who was in business, I think, 97 years and had to shut their doors.
Specifically, let's talk about Yellow, because that's an iconic institution of a trucking company, been around for all those years. Do you attribute as to why they went out of business because they just can't compete with this whole? I mean, why did they go out of business?
I'm not privileged to take a look at and have time to read all of the specific documents related to that. But I stay up on the news pretty frequently, and the load rates are bad right now. There was another company out of, I believe, Alabama that just laid off 1,000 drivers because they just couldn't afford to keep running. Those drivers were literally stranded in other states and no way to get their trucks, back, and the drivers getting home and return the equipment. Fuel cards were shut off, and drivers are left stranded. So when you have a segment of the trucking market that is willing to take loads at a cheaper price, the brokers who are issuing these loads, they thrive off of that. Because I'm in Utah now. I'll be in Washington State in a few days delivering a load. When I get to Washington State, my dispatcher and company will look for a load that goes someplace else. So what happens is a broker, or a lot of brokers for a region, know how many trucks are in an area that are available to move loads. And they're offering these loads at ridiculously very, very low rates, where a lot of companies are basically taking these loads for free just so that they can get the truck into a more profitable region of the country for that time of the year. So the broker is able to make more money. And overall, the American companies who are following the hours of service rules and maintaining their equipment professionally, which is not cheap, it's hard for them to stay afloat. And the last I read, I think it was something like 2,000 companies a week were filing bankruptcy. And keep in mind, these are companies anywhere from 2 to 5 trucks in a company.
That's a huge volume. I want to back up a little bit. You had mentioned we're going to get to the maintenance and sort of how these trucks are taken care of, but you had mentioned like you can't get behind the truck and I speak to those listening that have no idea about the rules and regulations of driving behind the truck. Could you talk to us a little bit about some of the laws and regulations surrounding the electronic logs, the amount of time that I can drive?
Sure.
Get into that, because that's where a lot of it is fractured, my understanding, in how folks are breaking the law.
So the trucking industry, and I just read this yesterday online, is the most highest regulated and government oversight industry in the United States. There are so many laws that govern and dictate how drivers will drive and how trucks will, be maintained. Certain tire depth, using DEF, for example. I've seen a lot of companies deleting the DEF off of there.
That's part of the diesel system. Right.
So back in the 70s and 80s, right? Remember the trucks with the big black smoke coming out of the top? We're not doing that anymore.
Well, we as youngsters, Pat, we thought that was cool. He would horn, his trucks just blew black smoke.
It's still kind of cool.
But now, if you don't know DEF, which is an additive that's used to clean up the exhaust system, it's an EPA mandated. Trucker Tim is talking about how they'll bypass and delete that because sometimes repair that gets really expensive and the truck will actually time out. But go ahead, Trucker Tim.
Yeah, that's correct. If the system's not functioning properly, your truck will automatically slow down to roughly 45 miles per hour. That gives you enough speed to get to a shop. If you don't, your truck's going to go down to maybe 10 miles per hour. And then eventually it will shut off in order to save the equipment and the engine. Personally, driving around the country, I have never, ever had any one of my pieces of equipment tested to see if the DEF is, working. If the DEF system's being used, or was it hooked up to a computer and completely deleted? The fines for this for the companies, it's very large, but it's also a very common practice. Not every truck, but a lot of companies do that to prolong the life of what people believe you could prolong the life of your engine and save money from buying DEF fluid, every time you fill up.
So they bypass it.
They bypass the entire system, yes.
Which is illegal.
Completely illegal. And I'll be honest, I tried to report a company that was doing it. They wanted me to drive a truck with and I there's no way I was going to do that, because now the liability's on me, and I would get hefty, fines, and it would go on my driving record. And it was almost impossible to report that type of usage. I tried reporting it. I was told, you have to go to the environmental, the EPA, and report it with them, and the online stuff. It was just it was a real big hassle. But anyway, we could talk about repairs, shoddy repairs. I've seen brakes put on upside down, backwards.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that, but I want to get back more into getting a sense for the average driver down the road of the regulations with the.
Sure.
Talk to us about how many miles can you drive and how many hours can you be behind the wheel before you got to take a break. I want to talk about that. So, we can get into how they're breaking the law there.
So a truck driver can work 14 hours a day. In a 24-hour period, you can work 14 hours, and then you have to take a 10-hour break. So within that 14 hours, let's say you do 3 hours at a dock getting loaded. So now you have 11 hours of driving that you can do. Let's say tomorrow morning I wake up, my truck's already loaded. I can drive 11 hours maximum in one 24-hour period. Then I have to take a 10-hour break.
How many miles, and I know this would be an average, but how far can you go in 11 hours, like without breaking speed? And
your average truck is going to do somewhere around 625, 650 miles. You have places like North Dakota and South Dakota. They're nice straight highways. You could probably get to 700 miles going through those states. But then you get to Montana and the mountainous states, you're going 35 miles an hour uphill, probably 40 downhill. So you're going to lose a lot of time when you're doing the mountain driving.
Does the trucking company that most of these truckers work for, are they good with about those averages, or is the sentiment they want more and more and more, keep going?
So from a driver's perspective, when we're gone from home for whatever the agreed time is, say you're going to go out 2 weeks and then you're going to go back home and take 3 or 4 days off, or you're going to stay out for a month and then go back home and take, 5 days off. The goal for us is we're out here sacrificing our time. We're away from our family. We're driving through all kinds of hazardous conditions, snow, ice, blizzard-like conditions, road closures, detours, navigational problems. It's not just a matter of, get on the highway, just put your feet up and drive straight. There are a lot of challenges, especially in the winter months as we're coming close to them. So the goal for us is to make as much as we can before we get back home. That's what we're out here for.
How is that log detection or the log books, I should say? Because years ago it was just handwritten, correct? It was like a spreadsheet handwritten kind of thing. So you have to log. And what does that mean? Like, what does the log mean to regulation, and how are the logs potentially broken?
The ELDs, the electronic logging devices, are automatically connected to the ignition system of the truck. So when I start driving, if I'm parked, I will be either on duty or off duty. So as soon as I start driving, the ELD automatically goes into driving mode. And it calculates all of your driving and all of your on-duty time right on the app that you're using. There's no way for a driver to alter that. However, there are a lot of companies that will get into the system and alter your driving times.
That's a big problem because you just said 11 hours a day. I mean, 14, figuring 2-3 hours at the dock and 11 hours driving. You're telling me that these are rigged in a way where they can bypass that so a driver can potentially drive 18 hours a day.
Right. So if you can imagine, let's say I do a delivery at 8 a.m. at a warehouse, I offload, it takes 3 or 4 hours to do that. Then I drive 2 hours to go pick up my next load. And then it takes me 3 hours to get loaded. But every time you pick up a load, you're going to have to do, on average, anywhere from 3 to 5 hours of driving to get to where your load has to be on time. These are very tight schedules. It's not like you have, 15 hours to goof off and go fish the Yellowstone River. You're going to be driving and moving as quick as you can to make your appointment time, because if you're late, you could end up paying anywhere from $150 to $400 late fee out of your pocket.
Who pays that?
Typically, the driver will be responsible. So I'll give you an example. I'm here in Utah. I checked in a little bit early, and the guy I was talking to said, I'm going to fine you $350 for being early. I said, well, that seems a little unfair. He says, well, it's in the contract. I said, well, I'm the driver. I don't get to see the contract. He said, well, if you're parked on my property, you need to get off my property, go find some place to park, and then come back at your appointment time.
Trucker Tim, why is this? I mean, is he trying to make a living off your backskin, or is there a problem with navigating other trucks? It's like a time deal where he can't have too many. Why do they do that?
Each warehouse throughout the country, and there are, I don't know how many tens of thousands of warehouses, they all have their own different check-in and check-out procedures. They're not all the same. Some warehouses will let you check in 1 hour before your appointment time. Some will let you check in 3 hours before your appointment time, and they'll call you when they have a dock door ready available for you. But, as we talk about that, every time a driver is sitting at these docks for excessive amounts of time. If I have a 2 a.m. appointment at a dock and they don't even get to me until 6 o'clock at night, that's 4 hours of my time. Every driver, we don't get paid for any of that time. We're volunteering our time to offload this stuff.
How many hours a month are you talking about waiting at a dock? The average?
I would say on a week, I probably sit roughly 25 to 30 hours at docks.
And you don't get paid?
No pay at all.
Is that industry-wide? Is that industry-wide?
Yes. It's an industry-wide practice that needs serious attention, because I don't think it's right to give me an appointment time. If I'm late, you're going to charge me. But then if I sit there for 5 hours getting loaded with pears or apples or cherries or turkey or ham, whatever it is, corn, that I have to lose out on that time. Now, keep in mind, all of that time these drivers are sitting at these docks waiting, their appointment time for delivery remains the same. It doesn't change. So if I'm waiting 4 hours, I've got to work, later through the night and still get to my appointment on time. And it's a really unfair, very common practice in this industry.
Trucker Tim, hang tight. Aiden's got a question. Aiden, what do you got?
So
Sure.
What I'm basically hearing is you guys have to be on time, but if you're early, you get punished. If you're late, you get punished. If the people that are loading you are too slow, you still get punished. If they're too fast and you still end up at the next location, you get punished. So
Exactly.
So the question is, if there's almost only you guys getting punished for stuff, the money comes out of your pocket, not your trucking company, yours. Why is it that we still have truckers taking this abuse but they're still expected to make time quotas like they're genies. You know what I mean?
I compliment him, Trucker Tim. So if you go back, like we grew up, like the union seemed to be really strong. Pat, I mean, you growing up, those type of trucking industry union was strong. To compliment what Aiden is saying, Tim, where's the union? I would imagine the union is freaking out.
So, okay, we're talking right now roughly, 330,000 trucking companies in the United States. And you'll have companies like Coca-Cola and Pepsi who belong to a trucking union. But your common carrier is a guy who owns maybe 5 trucks, 8 trucks. That is your typical trucking company in the country. You have your mega trucking companies like JB Hunt, Swift, Knight, Walmart. They might have their own unions or no union at all. So there is the ATA, the American Trucking Association, and I believe they're based out of Texas. They recently submitted some bills to Congress to try to get them approved. I did not see one item in there that included this problem with the warehouse times for loading and unloading. It wasn't an issue for them. But for the common blue-collar truck driver who's got a family to take care of, bills to pay and mortgages, and it is an issue because we get paid when the wheels are turning. Most people get paid with long hauling. You get paid per mile. Usually the local trucking companies, Coke, Pepsi, some other salad companies, they're on hourly pay. So,
or like Walmart. I read,
Right.
Tim, Walmart has, they'll pay X amount of, like $14 for the weight, or that's an exception. We're talking about the massive carriers that's what this conversation is, and not the exceptions of some of the bigger box stores and stuff.
Right. But the long hauling part of the trucking industry is typically paid by mileage. Your flat decks, your dry vans, reefers, all get paid per mile. So all this time, if I'm sitting at a dock 25, 30 hours a week, can you imagine how many miles I could be getting paid had I been driving those hours? So I'll give you an example. When I got to Utah, it unexpectedly took 6.5 hours to unload my truck. And it caused us to lose the next load. I couldn't make it on time. So now we had to wait for the market to open to look for another load to get me out of Utah to another state.
Why is this? What's with these distribution centers? What would you say is a common problem? Why are you waiting 6 hours?
It's overbooking, and it boils down to money again. Does a warehouse want to hire 12 forklift drivers or 3? Right? So the mentality is, so what? There's 18 trucks in the parking lot waiting to get unloaded. Warehouses just do not care at all. They do their 8, they hit the gate, they go home. Right? The truck driver, we're the ones in panic, like, we're going to lose the next load, and we're going to sit all weekend until the market opens on Monday. It's a huge impact on the trucking company because we're losing money. We're losing money every day that the truck doesn't move. And when these warehouses hold us up, then it puts a big dent in everybody's paycheck.
It makes it difficult. I can see that. I want to go back to just one more point on the domicile workers. Brokers, so we understand this, that brokers sort of broker where the loads are going. The carrier will pick up whatever load. Could you talk to us about the competition within these load rates? How does one trucking company beat another trucking company? I mean, if we were to talk about business, everybody wants to be competitive, but how are they able to do it for less. Like, how does that work out?
Well, if you have a trucking company, let's say you have a group of immigrants that come from whatever country, typically Eastern Europe or India, or some Latin countries. So when they come to the United States, if they could make, $800 to $1,000 a week and live in the truck with no overhead, no apartment, no house, that's really good money for them. And they send all that money home. So a trucking company will illegally hire them, say, for half the price, say 35, 40 cents a mile. And that driver's happy with it. He's making good money.
What's the going rate per mile, would you say right now?
Anywhere from 65 to 70 cents a mile for reefer and dry vans, flat decks, the guys who haul construction equipment and big bulky items, the oversized loads. They're making a little bit more, probably 80 to 85 cents a mile. Now, keep in mind, though, that equipment has to be loaded on those flat decks. You see the trucks, they have the tarps. Even bees, you have bee haulers out there. They load up all these crates of bees. They cover them with a big netting. It's very time-consuming to do all this work, to load these flat decks and stuff. So
that gives us perspective about how much they're cutting. So if I have 5 trucks and I can have a guy in there working for half, I'm getting that load.
I'm going to put Arizona on the spot because there was a gentleman out of Arizona with a trucking company. He was just on the news roughly 4 days ago, and that's what he was doing. And I think he profited about $2 million in 2 years off of operating like that. And I'll tell you what, there are drivers out there who don't even have a CDL. Colorado just did a sting operation, stopped a bunch of trucks, put some of them out of service for logbook violations, equipment violations, and one driver did not even have a CDL, was not even qualified to drive the truck.
So you're in the industry. These are actually somewhat scary points, Patrick, that he's making. How in the end does it affect safety on the roads? Let's address that, and then we're going to get into the mechanics of we only have 7 minutes. This needs to be like a 2-hour gig, but how does it, so the average driver's listening to all this, and that trucking industry has problems. I'm not going to worry about it. What have you seen in your time? You've been doing this for a long time that can truly affect the average family driver out there.
My number one advice to all of your listeners and to my own family is I tell them, when you're next to a truck, pass it, slow down, just get away from it. You don't know who worked on that truck. You don't know how long that driver's been driving. I can't even tell you how many times over the last 12, 13 years I've seen a semi just end up in the grass. Or off the road, or even off bridges. This is stuff I've personally witnessed. I've seen full tire sets come off of a truck. That's usually lack of lubrication.
Do you find the industry, speaking of maintenance, do they run to failure? Aren't I supposed to take care of my truck on a regular basis? And isn't it regulation?
Yes. So what happens is some companies want their truck returned to the company's home base. So let's say, for example, I work for a company out of Chicago, and I call the owner. I say, hey, the tires are really bad on this truck. They're not going to pass inspection if I get inspected. Okay, well, just bring the truck back to Chicago, and we'll replace the tires in Chicago. We'll replace, or we'll check the brake pads when you get to Chicago, or, we'll check everything when you get back to home base. And so they push the drivers to keep driving that way. And drivers should not be doing that. Drivers have to learn to put their foot down and say, no, I'm not going to risk getting, 3 flat tires, driving 1,200 miles back to Chicago or Indiana or, New Jersey to get these repairs done. Plus, the driver's putting themselves at risk at getting a ticket for unsafe equipment. And it's very common with the non-domicile companies. They're always trying to save a few bucks here and there when they can. Frank, I've seen wheels come off of trucks, brake fluid spraying everywhere. I've seen sparks come from underneath the chassis of semi-trucks. I had a repair done. The guy put the brakes on backwards. All the brakes had to be redone again. Which will take us into that other segment you were talking about. But non-qualified technicians, people just being hired to work on these trucks with no certification, no formal training or schooling at all. Frank, I will tell you a horrible story. I left the company, took a vacation. When I came back, they said, hey, we gave your truck to somebody else. We got another one for you. I said, okay, great, let's go. I went and checked out the truck. Nice, clean, low miles. I was driving from Sioux City to Sioux Falls in the early spring. Very high winds that were going through there at the time. I kid you not, Frank, the cab of the truck was lifting off the frame.
Wow.
It later turned out, long story short, these backyard mechanics were buying parts from a salvage company and building their own trucks.
Oh, my gosh.
The truck that I was in was missing, only had 2 bolts tightened down for the cab.
That's crazy.
The other 8 or 10 bolts were not secured.
Tim, I got maybe a minute left.
Yeah.
And we're definitely going to get you back on because I want to dive into more of this. And certainly over the next 30 days, definitely through the remainder of the year, there's going to be all kinds of stuff. The administration sounds like it's moving and grooving. You got a minute. What's your favorite part of truck driving?
Getting to see the entire country, meeting good people along the way. Never been to Louisiana before, but I love going there. The Cajun food is just great down there. People are really nice. Same with North, South Carolina, Alabama. I love going down to Arizona when I can. It's a nice opportunity to see how great of a country that we actually live in.
Man, that's solid. Patrick, man, I feel like I want to start.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for your time, Tim, spending with Wrench Nation. We'll definitely have you back. There's so much more to talk about. So thank you so much. We appreciate your time on Wrench Nation.
You're welcome, guys. Enjoy the holidays.
Be safe.
Yeah, we don't give our truckers enough credit. And for you, if you are, he was pretty drastic about if you're near a truck, just like get in and out. It used to be truckers were the safest. Is what I don't know. But he's on it. He sees it. And so this is a big shout out to all the truckers. We have a lot of truckers that listen to the podcast. It is not an easy industry. And let me tell you, when I get my banana, I get my cherry, I get my wood, I think about you guys. So hang in there. We're going to wrap it up. Wrench Nation. Patrick, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to open it up more. Eden, thank you for hanging. As I tell you every week, be safe, hug each other, and never forget to hug a mechanic.